Everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Giovanni Caldero. We are going to starting the webinar right now. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Solar Feasible 101 webinar brought you by Solar One and HPD, the Housing Department of Housing Preservation and Development. Here's the agenda for the day. We are going to be exploring a little bit about solar technology. Later on, we are going to discuss in detail Local Law 92 and 94 and the Solar Feasible program. And later, we are going to discuss two updates to the solar feasibility analysis that all buildings getting a TA from us are going to submit. As well as the solar feasible process. We are going to be talking in detail about what change and new process are in place. Later on, we're going to touch a little bit about applicable incentives and the Inflation Reduction Act. As a reminder, there is a feature here in the Zoom for you to write your questions. We are going to be answering those questions at the end. We are going to have some time to go over those questions, so feel free to use the Q&A section of the Zoom to ask your question. We are going to monitor those questions, and if the chance that we do not get to your question, we are going to take them, and then we are going to get back to you. And also, you can send us an email afterwards, and we will happy discuss any particular question that you might have about your project. So thank you again, and let's get started. As I mentioned, we are Solar One. Solar One is a nonprofit here based in New York City. And the program that we work at as a program manager is called Here Comes Solar. It's a program from Solar One. And basically, it is an initiative to provide solar access to historically high barrier sectors, particularly affordable housing. We offer free technical assistance at every step to make solar simple and affordable. And this partnership that we have with HPD is thanks to the support from the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, as we know it as NYSERDA. And with the technical assistance that we provide, we basically support all the buildings that come through the HPD portfolio. Today, we are going to touch a little bit about what we do, the site assessment, the knowledge building that we have available for building owners and residents. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are going to touch a little bit about the financing and incentive consultation, solar installer selection, and then we also offer advocacy for consumers during and after the installation. A little bit about solar technology. You can go to the next slide. Yes, thank you so much. How solar works. Basically, we have our buildings, and we assess for solar panels, solar modules, a solar array. It refers to the same technology. Basically, the sun hits that solar panel. That solar panels produce direct electricity. We know it as direct current. But in our buildings, we tend to use another type of electricity that is known as alternating current. So that's when we have to install a piece of equipment that is the number 2 in this image, that is called the inverter. The inverter is a piece of equipment that transfers that electricity from direct sunlight, direct electricity, into alternating electricity that we can use in our buildings. Once that electricity is transformed from direct to alternating current, we can use that electricity to power our buildings. In most cases, the settings that we have here in New York City is a net energy metering system, meaning that once you transform that electricity, you can use that electricity to power common areas in your building. Since many buildings are multifamily and have many units, most of the electricity is used to offset common area electricity, like elevators, hallways, laundry rooms, and so on. If your system produces enough electricity, more than the one that you use, then the electricity is delivered out from your building out back into the utility The utility that we know and we have in New York City is called Con Edison. So that electricity goes back to Con Edison. And how you receive savings is through credit. Basically, in your electricity bill, you're going to receive a credit that is basically paid to you at the same rate. And that is known as net energy metering. Net energy metering. There's other setups that are in place too, like community distributed generation, but in most cases, the buildings that we see with HPD is just like this. Solar goes transferred into the inverter. We use that electricity in our building, and then we release the excess of electricity to Con Edison. At nighttime, the sun is not there, solar is not producing electricity. So Con Edison will send the electricity to our building and we will be using electricity from the utility. So once again, that's the simple summary of net energy metering. The basics of solar technology, just letting you know that when we assess your roof or your building, we tend to ask a question commonly like, hey, is your roof brand new? What's the condition of your roof? Is your roof going to be replaced or resurfaced during this project? And we ask that question because once you install solar, it's likely that your roof will be having that equipment for 25 years, sometimes maybe more. And that's the reason behind why we are always encouraging you to let us know about the condition of your roof. Another question that we get often is like, hey, I am a building owner. Once I have this solar in my roof, um, what is the maintenance? Do I have to do something? Do my personnel have to do something with the solar installation? And in most cases, the main type of maintenance will be remote monitoring, that you can have your computer and check how your system is performing. That can be done by you, by the owner, or also by a third-party entity, or by the solar installer that completes the installation, and they are going to monitor. And then if they see something that is not working properly, they will flag that to you if you are the building owner, and then they are going to say, hey, I'm monitoring your system. I noticed that the inverter is not working properly, or this solar panel is not working properly, and they are going to give you the service that you need. Besides that, there is no main maintenance request. The system will be in place. Most of the time, nature will do the cleaning for you. Anytime that it rains, the rain will clean the dust that accumulates in tops of the solar panels. So almost no maintenance, I will say. Of course, if there is something exceptional, then you might require maintenance. But once your system is installed, it will be there for a long time. Another thing that we explore when we are assessing your building is that the building must receive direct sunlight. As we been saying, it's a solar panel, so it requires direct sunlight. So when we assess your building, ideally in New York City, in the New York City area, we want a roof free of shade, especially with bigger structures in the south side. In or outside of your building. It might be that you have a south side building across the street that is taller than your building. If you have shade most of the year, it might affect the solar feasibility for your building. Another one is bigger trees. Like sometimes your building is like 2-story or 3-story, and then you have a huge tree in the south side that might impact your solar resource. That might also be flagged for you when we do the analysis. And in your actual building, sometimes we see in buildings that have like water towers or elevator shaft or many other potential obstructions that, depending on their location in your roof, they might affect the solar feasibility in terms of shading for that. And then the last thing that I want to mention in this slide is that sometimes we have a misconception, and this is good to clarify at this point, is that in New York City, most of the solar installation are what we know as grid connected or grid tied. So basically what happened is that the grid creates a form of waves that the inverter have to receive that wave, a stable wave from the utility. And whenever the utility is not operating properly, then your solar will not provide electricity. Even if we have a day, shiny day like today, if the utility is not working today at this time, even if you have solar in your roof, you will not have power. That's something that you have to also know when you are installing these systems. Um, yeah, and that comes into play when we have like storms or things like that, that it might create a burden in the building, and you say, I have solar, I don't have to worry. But if you have a grid tight system like the ones that most of the people with solar in New York will have, I will say everyone have these type of systems. If the grid goes down, if there is a blackout, your solar will not produce the electricity to power your building. There are other installation types, but these are the most common that we see in New York City. Ballasted system, mechanically attached, also referred as planar, and the one on the right is canopy. Ballasted is the least expensive one, and it's usually installed in buildings that are less than 100 feet tall. And usually, this installation will not require roof penetration. So if you are very cautious of your roof, you don't want any roof damage, this is the way to go. You are not going to have any drills or any attachment into your roof. That's likely. And the way that they held these solar panels in place is by adding weight. So there's a structural requirement that an engineer from the installation company will assess your building for that. But basically, you have a tray that will hold cinder blocks, and then you put your solar panels on top of that tray, as you can see in the picture on the left. And there is some cases that you might need roof penetration with this, but it's very minimal. So this one is the one that creates that protects the roof the most, I will say. The one in the metal mechanical attached, sometimes people call them planar arrays. They are good in terms of that you avoid the gap between solar panels, so you can use the space a little bit better, and you can produce more power when you use this setting. There's no interrow shading, and then it's best practices for roof that does not have a lot of space. The third one in the right is called solar canopy. So basically, it's like a structure that is above your roof, and then this will require a little bit of more like engineering, as you can see in the picture, because of the complexity. There are many ways and many different type of canopies, so this is not the one that is the most common, I will say, but it will require a little bit more of like complexity and engineering. So as the third bullet point on the canopy, this is the most expensive, but have co-benefits, meaning that you can avoid obstructions. So you can put, if you have like a lot of mechanical vents and pipes, you can avoid those because your solar canopy is on top of your obstruction. So, and the other thing about canopies too is that you can use the building for other purposes. Maybe you have like a recreational space that you want to use, and canopies can be a good alternative for that. When we look at building, we always look to these five main categories, to put it that way. Is the first, as I already mentioned, I want a building that ideally have and receive direct sunlight and minimal shading. That's one of the main important things that we observe. The second, the more space you have, the better will be for solar. So in this case, we are going to assess for the larger your roof, the more power you can provide for your needs and your energy needs. Um, as I mentioned too, the newer the roof, the newer the roof warranty, the better it is for your solar, because as I mentioned, solar will be there for at least 20, 25 years. So we want to avoid having to install solar and then you have to replace the roof 10 years from now and then you have to take all these solar panels out. So we want to avoid that. So usually is if you can integrate solar as part of the roof scope of work, that would be ideal. And then you have a brand new roof and you have a brand new solar installation, and that's what we're looking for when we do our reviews too. Um, Another thing, this might be difficult too, but if you to the extent that you are generating your roof layout, if you can consider putting your mechanical equipment in the north side, that will be better, because if you have your mechanical equipment or towers in the south side, it might be that solar cannot be put it up front in the north side because of the shade. So as you can see in that top right corner, uh, that mechanical equipment is up there and solar is below, because we that's the ideal scenario. So as far as we have room for avoiding those shade, that will be and also a plus for your building. And then the one of the most important considerations that we have is fire path. The fire department requires a 6 feet gap from the building edge that faces the street into your solar installation. So that's why we have that into consideration. And also around the perimeter, and also if you have like a fire escape, like in this image, the door have to have that also that a space gap, so we cannot put solar panels right in front of the door basically, so we have to account for that spacing. And those are the considerations that we take when we do our solar assessment and designs. Also, sometimes we take all of this into consideration and we say that I think that this building have no space, this building does not have they have a lot of shade and all that, so it might be that your roof might be old and you are like, solar is not good for me. We still have options for you. One option that does not require a solar installation in your roof is community solar. Community solar basically, you can be also, if you are a renter and you don't own a building, you can subscribe to a community solar project to save about $5 to $10 a month. It's not a lot, but it makes a significant difference when at the end of the year that you have like 12 months of savings. It's guaranteed. It's a 12-month term, auto renewal. If you move to another apartment or to another building within the Con Edison territory, you still receive the benefits. There's no sign up or cancellation fee. How it works basically is that we install solar in a, for example, in a warehouse or in a school or in another place, and then that electricity is sent directly into the grid, and then you subscribe to receive a discount basically from that electricity that is off-site, is not necessary in your building. So if you are a co-op owner or if you have a condo and you want us to visit your site, HPD is working with our community solar team to host tabling events, so we can talk directly with your residents, with your tenants, and we will have all the information. We can ask questions, and the only thing that we need for subscribing people in this is basically your electricity bill. If you receive an electricity bill, you can give us a copy of your electricity bill, and then someone will be happy to assist in that regard. That program, community solar program, is not what Carly and I work directly, so but we can refer you to the right person. In this case, you can reach out to my colleague Ana Paula Abarca, Ana Paula at solarone.org, and the phone number is that one, 347-303-7048. And we are going to remind you about this later at the end of this presentation. Now I will pass the mic to Carly Ayakawa, our program manager in charge of the HPD2. Carly, take it away.
Thanks, Gio. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. So in 2019, the Climate Mobilization Act was passed, and it created local laws 92 and 94, which require either solar or green roofs on all new roofs and roof assemblies. So these laws really impacted new construction buildings as well as existing buildings that are undergoing major renovations and getting their entire roof assembly replaced down to the roof deck. While the laws were implemented in November 2019, the DOB created an alternate compliance timeline. Sorry, I don't know if you hear my background noise. The DOB created an alternate compliance timeline for affordable housing, which was pretty much a 5-year grace period to comply with local law 92 and 94 to the extent determined by HPD. And this created HPD's solar or feasible program, which requires solar if it's cost effective. So in about 1 month, the alternate compliance pathway is ending. And so ahead of that, in July, HPD stopped requiring the solar where feasible mandate for new construction projects. Regardless, new construction projects are going to need to comply with local law 92 and 94, and the solar feasibility tool is a helpful tool to optimize solar design, assess local law 92 and 94 for your building, and inform the project's underwriting. So the solar where feasible mandate requires affordable housing to go solar only when it's financially beneficial to the building with a payback period of 10 years or less. And we use a tool called the solar feasibility analysis to determine and estimate the payback period. So like I mentioned, new construction projects just need to comply with local law 92, 94, and they're not required to submit an analysis anymore, but we can still review an analysis and provide you with feedback to inform your solar design. So our partnership with HPD is funded by NYSERDA, which enables us to run the Solar Where Feasible program and provide free technical assistance to HPD's portfolio. And this mandate has been really helpful in supporting many megawatts of cost-effective solar on hundreds of buildings. And over time, the buildings are going to be able to save a lot of money on their annual electricity bills and reduce tons of carbon dioxide emissions each year. So the tool that's really key to the solar feasible program is the solar feasibility analysis. About once or twice a year, we update the tool to include up-to-date pricing and incentives and add new features like buttons that improve the usability. And so we ask that everyone who's submitting an analysis to download the tool from HPD's Solar Where Feasible webpage, because that's where you can always find the most up-to-date analysis. Here are a couple screenshots of the tool, but I'm actually gonna pull the tool up right here and walk you through tabs and key features. So when you download the tool from HPD's Solar Where Feasible webpage, you'll see there are 5 tabs that open up. The first tab contains instructions on how to use the tool, as well as all the detailed assumptions that are embedded into the tool and what contribute to the payback period. So if you're ever curious about why the payback period is 6 years, for example, you can dive into these assumption section to understand the various factors that influence the cost and savings of solar. This next tab is the project info tab, and so we ask for basic project information. Often we'll see, sometimes we'll see that this is left blank, but this is really key. We need to know your HPD project ID and your assigned project manager. So be sure to fill out these fields before you submit to us. And there's an applicant comment section, so you can use this space to kind of explain why you think the project should include solar or not, and mention things that might affect solar viability, such as electrification. Now, if you have a HPD project that consists of more than one building, you're going to click the multiple buildings inputs button, and then you're able to fill out inputs for each address. Something to note is that our tool is not yet programmed to run an analysis for multiple buildings. So when you fill out the information, don't expect to see results calculated because we have to do that separately on our end. Now, if you have a one building project, you can just proceed to the building info page. And this is where we ask you for more information about the building, such as the ownership type, the number of units, the roof condition, the usable roof area for solar. And then we have a section dedicated to incentives. So your answers to these questions determine the what incentives to include in the results page. And so you can toggle these on or off. And if you ever have questions, if you're a little bit confused about how to answer some of these, we have some hover comments that pop up, but sometimes Excel can be a little tricky and not show them. So you can right click and then show or hide note, and then you'll get more information about why we're asking about this input and what impact it'll have on the analysis. So this is really helpful if you are not quite sure as to how to answer a question. These kind of tool tips are helpful, and you can always email affordable@solarone.org if you need assistance with getting this filled out. So on the roof layout tab, we want to see like pictures or renderings or roof plans for your building. And for this example, we can see that the project is including solar. They already have some panels mocked up and the FDNY clear pass there, so we can understand like the possible solar system size. And then you can add notes to describe things like there are VRF units that are going to take up some of the usable roof area for solar. And if you don't have a roof plan at this stage, that's totally fine. Often what we see is that people submit a screenshot from Google Maps, and that works fine. But what's really key is just to include information about like distinct features or, obstacles that could impact the solar viability. So if you filled out all the fields on the building info tab, you'll see results that get populated. There's key buckets of information like the projected system performance, the estimated cost, tax incentives, and then takeaways like the payback period. And then you'll get to see the cash flow over a span of 25 years. When you are done with the analysis and you're ready to submit it, you can press this button and it'll direct you to our intake page. And then you can just await an email back from SolarOne. We might ask you questions to clarify your responses and get you to a analysis that we feel confident in. And so, like I mentioned, the incentives make a big impact on the payback period. If I say, yes, you can benefit from the tax credit, the payback period is estimated at 6 years. But if for some reason you're not able to, we ask that you explain why, kind of justify why, and then you'll see that the payback period has increased to 9 years. Like Gio mentioned, the solar canopy installation method is the most costly form of solar. So if I say, yes, this project is proposing a solar canopy, the payback period increases further, the cost of solar increases, but the system size also increases. So the amount of solar production, you can reap more savings from a larger solar system. So you can play around with the tool to kind of understand how different inputs impact the payback period. And we're always happy to work with you to make a solar project kind of work for your project, the budget, and your needs. Okay. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the process associated with solar where feasible. To start, we get questions about this rule frequently. So the Department of Environmental Protection has a unified stormwater rule that's triggered if a project disturbs 20,000 square feet of soil or creates 5,000 square feet of new impervious surface. This typically applies to new construction projects. And so if you're subject to the Unified Stormwater Rule, your project should really assess for this requirement before assessing for solar, because this takes precedence, and you may require DEP may require you to include a green roof as part of the stormwater management strategy. And so it's always good to assess the various laws and rules applicable to your project holistically. So the process for solar, where feasible, it depends on your construction type. So like I mentioned, for new construction projects, you no longer need to submit an analysis or obtain a signed approval form, but we really encourage you to use the tool to assess for local law 92 and 94, optimize your solar design, maximize incentives, and estimate solar savings for underwriting purposes. Now, for all other rehab projects, this includes sub, mod, gut rehab projects, as well as tax exemption only, maintenance only, or delegated loan projects. You're going to fill the tool out, submit an analysis. We're going to review it, talk to you, clarify any questions that we have, and then provide a solar recommendation to HPD, and then HPD will provide you with a signed solar approval form. So getting a little bit more detailed, before the formal submission, think about how to optimize your roof for solar, and then think about other rules that need to be satisfied, like the Unified Stormwater Rule. And for rehab projects, if you are in the IP&A phase, you should submit an analysis to us. We'll provide you with feedback and a revised version. And at this stage, the analysis is going to be called a solar screening, because your project scope is really not fleshed out yet. And this screening is supposed to be included in your IP&A submission to HPD. So now this official submission comes after your pre-scoping meeting, but prior to the design consultation. We recommend submitting it like 3 to 4 weeks before the design consultation. And so usually it's the architect or your green consultant that submits an analysis. We ask to include supporting documents like a roof plan, and make sure that the roof plan shows any proposed mechanical equipment aligned with your project scope of work, so that we know what is the usable roof area for solar. We'll review the analysis, provide a recommendation to HPD, and then at your design consultation, this will be discussed, and then HPD will provide you with a signed solar approval form. Here's an example of a solar approval form signed by HPD. And now once you know whether solar is required or not, your architect will develop a preliminary design for solar, and that will be used for bidding purposes. And let's say the architect designs a solar system and the size is really different than what was estimated in the analysis. You should resubmit the analysis to reflect the latest design, and then we can help you calculate the latest and most accurate cost and payback period for solar on your project. When the project goes out to bid, you should be sure to you should make sure that any solar bids received include the full installation costs and the estimated NYSERDA New York Sun incentive, which Gio will talk about in the next few slides. And Solar One is able to assist projects with bidding. So if you're looking for a GC, we can help you create a solar scope of work, and that can be included in the GC bid package. Or let's say you already have a GC that you're working with on the scope of work, we can run an RFP on behalf of the GC and help you select a solar subcontractor. And then when the project is closed and construction has began, you can always reach out to Solar One and we can help you move the project along as needed. So if you have any questions about your HPD projects and solar, just email affordable@solarone.org and we can assist you from there. Now I'll pass it back to Gio, who will talk more about solar cost savings and incentives.
Thank you, Carly. Usually when we provide our services, people ask us like, once I engage with a solar contractor, what is included? Basically, the contract will include a site visit. Previously, our site assessor at Solar One will review your building before the release of the RSP. If you have new construction, that is a different approach, but still, site visits from the solar contractor that you select, and they are going to also create a contract, and you are going to sign that contract with your direct solar contractor. The other aspect of it will be the design and application submission. They are going to do a system design, a structural analysis. As I was saying, if you have a ballasted system, you will add some weighting to it, and another more complex architecture if you have a canopy structure, for example. The same with the engineering. They are also responsible for submitting to Con Edison, the utility, to NYSERDA, the fire department, and where applicable to the Landmark Preservation Commission too, if your building is a designated landmark. That also they have the contract will include permit submission to the Department of Buildings and electrical permits submissions to the construction and electrical permits also are part of this. Um, in terms of the solar, the actual construction of the solar, they are responsible of the system installation, equipment procurement, checking that and verifying that all the equipment gets delivered to your site and all that. Also the installation and the filing with Con Edison for interconnection. So anytime that we, as I explained at the beginning, with the net energy metering, you are going to send the electricity to Con Edison, so they have to approve that you are available to send the electricity to them. So they are going to approve that too. And then also with the inspection and sign off, that's also part of this contract. And then they are going to give or receive a permission to operate, and then your solar system will be up and running, and then you are going to start receiving your credits or billing. How we help save money with solar. Usually, multifamily solar projects, as Carly was showing, a good one will be to have a payback period less than 12 years, but if less, much better. Depending on the cost and incentive, some of these incentives are not applicable to every project. So this is on a case-by-case basis. So if you have a particular building or a particular question that you want, we provide that for you. So some of the most important or the most common incentives that are out there is the investment tax credit, the ITC. That's the federal one, or people refer as the federal one. Property tax abatement, that's New York City property tax abatement. And again, it might be that it's not applicable to your case. If you have other abatements, this you cannot take it. And the other one is the low income housing tax credit, or people call it LIHTC too. So the other important thing is that although you tackle or you can use this incentive, solar will provide benefits beyond the after the 25 years. So solar will be good for that in the long term. On the pictures that you see on the right, for example, and also Carly showed a little bit during the presentation, but the picture on the left, it says that with no solar incentive, your system might be 12 years. And this is just an example, a generic, not a particular building, just to show that it might be that before the incentive, your payback period is 12 years. And then after the incentive, if they apply to you, then you can reduce that in half, and then you can pay back your system in less time. Other ways to save on electricity bills will depend on multiple factors. One of them will be the class rate of your building. If you have a big building, many units, elevators, and is considered in your electricity bill. If you see that, it's called an EL9. That's a big commercial building classified within Conedison. And or if you have like a small walk up that you don't have elevators and your electricity consumption in common areas is a little bit lower. Um, Usually, typically, what we see when we do our assessment is that the EL9 buildings, the bigger buildings, can offset about 50%. And again, this is on a case by case. It might be that it's only 10%. It might be that it's higher than that. But usually it's about 50% more or less. And then buildings that are a little bit less in space, like 1 to 4 family or like walk ups without elevators, can offset 100% of the common area electricity consumption. So that's a huge saving for the building. Those savings can be allocated for the reserve of the buildings, or the building can decide later on what to do with that. And then the other important thing about savings is like owner pay electricity rate. Again, if you have a large commercial building versus small commercial building versus master meter, master meter is like if you have the metering system or the metering configuration, instead of having multiple meters, um, you have like basically 1 meter for the entire building, including apartments, and then you distribute that to your tenants or to the other buildings residents. But based on that, all these plays have a play into savings, and all of that we take into consideration, and that's why we ask all these questions in the feasibility analysis. And the other important thing too, as I mentioned before, if you have enough space in your roof, if your roof is free of shade, and your is usable, you have a good brand new roof or in good condition, that also play a role, because the bigger the system size, the better will be your savings. So all of this take in a play when we talk about saving on utility bills. Here we have a small summary of what I was saying before. If you see in the top row from left to right, we have the NYSERDA, New York Sun Incentive, um, the federal tax credit, the ITC, the state tax credit, and the property tax abatement that some people refer as the PTA. One thing about the NYSERDA, and then on the left side in the column from top to bottom, we have the building type, we have the uh, owner of the condo or co-op, for-profit renter, and non-profit rental. The NYSERDA incentive is $1.60 up to $2 watts for affordable housing. And this one is paid directly to the solar installer, and they are responsible for claiming that incentive. And then the federal tax credit, if your building is owner occupied, co-op, or condo, it will be either distributed to your shareholders or taken by the building entity. For profits rentals, commercial tax credits can be taken for the ITC, and the nonprofit rental, the tax credit is refundable to nonprofits, or they can be taken by the LightTech investor for additional benefits. Um, the state tax credit, if your building is an owner occupied co-op or condo, must be distributed to shareholders. And since this is only applicable for homeowners only, it does not apply for profit rentals and non-profit rentals. And then the PTA, the property tax abatement, is only eligible if taxes are owed, is not compatible with some other abatements. So if your building is already receiving abatements, others, this one cannot be claimed. And we also ask for that clarification when we do our analysis. And then in terms of the nonprofit rental, since they don't have tax liability, they cannot take the property tax abatement. And then the federal investment tax credit is 30%, but we can add some adders for building in low-income census tracts. And I think that Carly, you will touch a little bit more about those adders that goes beyond the 30%.
Yeah, thanks, Gio. So now that Gio's given you an overview of the available solar incentives, I'm going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and the major solar incentives that were introduced in 2022. So these are the bonus tax credits as well as a mechanism called elective pay. So as Gio was mentioning, there's the 30% ITC. This is 30% of the system cost, and the Inflation Reduction Act extended it to 2032, and then it's going to step down gradually after that. You can claim the 30% tax credit in the year following the system installation. And then what was exciting about the Inflation Reduction Act was that it created some bonus tax credit categories. So with the base 30%, you could actually apply for and get additional 10% or 20% adders. And so category one is a 10% bonus. You're eligible to apply if your project is located in a low income community, which is determined by the new market tax credit map. And then there are two 20% bonus tax credit categories, 3 and 4, and they encourage solar on low income residential buildings or qualified low income economic benefit projects. So I'll be talking about the categories 1 and 3 in the next 2 slides in more detail because they are most applicable to affordable housing projects in the city. But to summarize, these bonus tax credits have 1.8 gigawatts of solar allocated annually for all of these, but they're not guaranteed. So you actually need to determine your eligibility, submit an application, and then receive a capacity allocation in order to be granted this tax credit. So category 1 is determined by the new market tax credit map. You can follow this link, search your project up, and then you can see whether the building is eligible or not. And then you need to apply with details about your project, receive the allocation, place the solar facility in service in order to claim the bonus tax credit. And we've included helpful links here to get more information about the process, the application, and just more details about the program for the Department of Energy. Category 3 is for qualified low-income residential building projects. It's a 20% bonus, and you're eligible if you're installing solar on affordable housing that's federally funded, and the solar project's financial benefits are distributed equitably to your low-income tenants. So in some of these links, you'll be able to see what affordable housing, what federal funding is like, makes you eligible for this tax credit. And I will link the application platform as well as the program overview. Something to note is that it can be a little bit challenging to understand the eligibility and process criteria. So you can always email us at affordable@solar1.org, and we can kind of screen your projects and walk you through some of the steps to go for some of these really rich and valuable tax incentives. So direct pay, which is also known as elective pay, was introduced by the Inflation Reduction Act. It's a mechanism that allows federally exempt nonprofits as well as state and tribal governments to receive the tax credits as a direct cash payment from the Treasury. So it'll actually appear like a tax refund as if your organization has made excess payments. And this has been really game-changing for a lot of the nonprofit developers that we work with, because prior to direct pay, they weren't able to benefit from the tax credit. So their payback periods were often less attractive when it comes to solar. Something important to note is that joint ventures and partnerships that consist of a for-profit entity they're not eligible for direct pay. So even if you're a federally exempt nonprofit, if your partner is for profit and could technically take the tax credit, then you're not able to use direct pay. And again, we've linked helpful guidance like frequently asked questions, a user guide instructions, and the final guidance from the IRS. So I know we've thrown a lot of information at you in this webinar. I hope it was helpful. And I also want to highlight that HPD's Solar Where Feasible webpage is really a one-stop shop for you to learn more about affordable solar for affordable housing. We have a lot of key links like solar feasibility analysis and our intake page where you'll submit the analysis. We have helpful resources like the HPD solar technical requirements and more detailed information about the incentives and how they might apply to your building. And this workshop will also be uploaded so you can kind of refresh your memory with the slides that we presented today. And if you are interested in receiving free technical assistance from us, just request it by emailing affordable@solar1.org, and we can begin to engage with you on your project. And then prior to the Q&A, I wanted to just hammer home that community solar is a really great opportunity for all renters and people with Con Edison bills to enroll in a community solar project and save $5 to $10 a month on your electricity bill. And through the Solar Where Feasible program, we can partner with you and your buildings to organize outreach events, educate your tenants about how and why they can sign up for community solar, and we'll work with you to determine what the best outreach strategy might be. So we could set up an informational table in your common area or lobby. We can post flyers. We can attend tenant meetings and answer questions or participate in other kinds of building events. We do have a preference to engage with buildings that are located in Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens. But if you're interested, I encourage you to email Anna Paula at solar1.org or give her a call at this number, and you'll be able to get started with her. Great. And now we'll end with the Q&A in the last 3 minutes. I'm going to pull up the Q&A chat. I think we've been kind of answering them throughout the presentation, but feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A, and then we'll answer them as best we can. Okay, I see Kamu's question. How has the dollar per kilowatt hour pricing changed over time, and by how much? The savings will inevitably fluctuate over time, and developers need to underwrite to today's estimated price to project it 15 to 30 years. So over time, the cost of electricity has increased. Our tool assumes like a 3% increase each year, but in reality, Con Ed has actually in the past year increased our rates like nearly 15% or so. So our tool is projecting solar savings conservatively. And if you have more questions about our assumptions, feel free to email us and we can kind of get more specific. And then Zavilla asked, what kind of monthly fees are associated with a completed installation? So Con Edison has a customer contribution charge. It's called a CBC, and you're charged a certain like dollar per kilowatt based on your system size. And so let's say you have like a 10 kilowatt system and the CBC is $1.50 per kilowatt, then that'll be an additional like $15 of fixed charges on your Con Ed bill each month. Typically, solar installers don't offer O&M, like operations and maintenance packages to projects of this size, to multifamily affordable solar projects. But if you're interested in having an O&M package, that's something you can inquire with your solar installer. Do you have anything to add, or is that all right?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone that attended. It's already 1 p.m. Feel free to send us your questions to affordable@solar1.org. We are going to be happy to assist with more questions in more detail.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.